welcome back to Astrology Alert. It's great to see you. It's been quite a while.
Yes, I'm glad to be here. I love what you're doing. You're a welcome and exciting addition to the YouTube politics world.
Yeah, no, there are a lot of great people out there, though. But yeah, I think for the most part, would you say most people agree on the panorama, or would you say that there are disagreements?
There's a whole other faction of pro-Trump psychics that none of us mess with. but but they've been brought to my attention, and the lines do not get crossed. I mean, we're kind of over here in our, okay, he's a fascist, and they're over here going, he's the best thing since sliced bread, he's going to win again in 24 and it's going to be great, and da 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 da. So there's a whole other group that I obviously am not welcome to talk to.
Mm.
But they exist.
Well, that's a uh, pretty amazing way to think of it because I don't see him doing well in 24 at all. I don't see him doing well, period, ever. He's
No.
no, he's running into his own, mostly into his own actions because in astrology in the Saturn cycle, Saturn, one of the things it does is wherever you are, 7.5 or so years later, you run into the square, so it reveals to you what you did. And this is what he became president and all the things he's done, mostly because the funny part is people used to say, this guy's going to be in trouble, which he's in trouble for that too, the financial, all the crimes that he committed, Letitia James and all that. But who would have predicted that he would commit his biggest crimes after he left the presidency? I mean, the man is a crime machine. He just does not know how to live without committing crimes.
No, he doesn't. And I think for him, it's so ingrained that he's done it for, decades upon decades upon decades, and he's never gotten caught.
Yeah.
So at this point in his mind, he's like, this is normal. This is normal life. I take files out and I keep them in my bathroom. Like that, And then when people ask, they'll say, no, no, no. The minute I took them out of the White House, they became declassified. That's how it works. And you know what the sad thing is? He probably actually brainwashed himself to believe that that is now the truth.
Yeah, no, I think that's true too. That's one of the things you see in his chart as well, that the person that lives their life constantly making things up eventually lives in that mind space, and which is why he's so conspiratorial, and he'll think, some website says something, and he literally will quote this in an interview. Uh, there were government cameras during the election that saw the fraud. Well, which cameras? Where? Never mentions where, but someone wrote somewhere on a website there were government cameras. Everyone knows this. Who's everyone? He just talks like this. And
I
yeah, I
know.
agree with you. I think he believes, at least in part, not everything, but I think in part, he does believe some of what he says.
Would
Which
that
is,
be the Neptune in his
yes,
chart?
yeah,
Okay.
that's right. Yeah, there you go. See,
Well, I'm on your Patreon, so I'm learning astrology.
yeah, that's the Neptune is the Neptune on the high end is the most spiritual planet because it's totally open-ended energy, but then it starts to descend and descend, and the idea of creating something that isn't real, anything that isn't as it seems, including all the way to being a gaslighter and a liar and a deceiver. And this guy, by the way, he was interviewed by one of the reporters in the Washington Post who was writing a book, which is another thing he does. He lets anybody write books about anything and tells them the truth. And this guy asked him, well, why do you, constantly lie? And he replied, he said, because there's a beautiful thing called disinformation. So he's a liar, but his people, he knows that his people don't care. This is the really disturbing part, that we have so many millions in this country that seem to think this is okay,
Mhm.
even though they're probably telling their children, don't lie, don't cheat. It seems to be okay for the person in charge. So
What
yeah,
what 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 was it? Was it Nixon that said it's not illegal if the president does it? I
yeah,
mean,
right. Yeah, right, exactly. Which I mean, there's a sense in which these guys read that Article 4 or whatever that is. There's some article that gives them a lot of latitude, and then they claim that this is permission to do anything. But obviously, that's not true. No, I mean, and Nixon experienced it. I mean, you can say that if the president does it, it's not illegal, but the courts will disagree with you. You know,
Yeah.
for one thing, the courts are a separate branch of government who want their piece of the pie too, which is one of the reasons that you notice Trump is trying to uh, take it to the Supreme Court, like basically appeal it. His logic is because I put them there. Yeah, you put them there, but that's their job, and they want to keep their job. And if they put a dictator in power, you might take their job away, right? They're not going to trust you. So that's why back in 2020, they said, we're not even going to look at your case. There were 63 cases. No, we're not. Why are they going to look at it again? Or why are they going to give you a positive outcome when you're on the wrong side of the law? They're the ones that are administering the law. It makes no sense at all. But, it's the only play he has. So maybe that's the only thing he can do. Because at this stage, what else is he going to do other than maybe leave and go live in Saudi Arabia? I don't know. Someone, by the way, thought that he might do that. A psychic said.
I think he might. I have been reading on his multiple charges. I did a whole video on his multiple charges, and I have never seen jail time for this guy. And for years, I haven't seen it. Went back when he was president, everyone's going, "Oh, they're going to lock him up. He's going to get through." I'm looking at it, and I never saw jail time for him. The last time I read on this stuff with all of the many, charges, I still didn't see jail time. I saw convictions, but I never saw jail time. So I'm wondering, does he? I think I said in the video, I'm just going to go to vacation in Dubai real quick, and then he never comes back.
Yeah, it's a possibility. Do you sense that could he ever be home sequestered or anything like that? Or is that also a form of jail and you don't see that?
I don't think he would. I don't think he'd put up with it. I think if they said house arrest, he'd go, okay, but first I'm going to take my vacation in Dubai. Like, I feel like, especially with the Geminis can't be locked up. Geminis cannot be in one place forever and ever and ever and ever. They'll go crazy. They'll put their head through a wall. He needs to be out. He needs to be about. He needs to be stimulated. And I don't think he has obviously no problem flouting the law. I think if they tried to put him on house arrest, if he had space, if he had room, he'd be like, okay, sure. But first, I got to go visit Mohammed bin Salman right quick. I'll be right back.
Yeah, no, I could see that. I mean, to my mind, though, as long as he's neutered, and in that sense, things are not looking good at all because of what's happening, just on the world level. And his astrology is just a royal mess. It's really hard now with Saturn moving in next year, closer to the squares, even more. Because this year, I kind of knew that in March things would start to get worse because of Saturn entering Pisces, but I didn't think they would get as bad as they got right away. When a planet switches into the square sign to sign and it starts to come after you that early, that is not a good sign. It means that when it really moves in, and now it's in the range of the exact square next year when some of the trials are scheduled. Well, that can't be good. How's that going to?
What is it squaring? His sun?
Well, his sun is 21 something, or no, 22 something degrees, and his moon is 21. And Saturn will actually station a little before at 19 something, but that's close enough to drag those two in. So then 24, and then in 25, it does it again, right? It does it one more time. And the thing with him is that if you thought, well, okay, so then Saturn will get out of Pisces, and when it goes into Aries, that would be good. No, because that's that Access Hollywood T where he really has trouble, and it's in the legal house. So this extends into 26, 27. It's not a good scene, very unhelpful. And he really, look at the facts, look at what they are. Like, how does he get off? Now, of course, the question is, people will say, can he become president? I say no, I don't see that. Do you?
This dog's driving me nuts. Give me 1 second. They're doing construction right next door, and he's barking at all the construction workers. You're driving me nuts.
Okay, I
Do
restarted.
I see him? Well, here's the thing. My cards have been weird. I actually wanted your opinion on 24 because my cards are again showing those sneaky things. So they're showing consistently the Seven of Swords, which is the guy sneaking around. He's sneaking around. He's carrying away the two swords. They're showing me the Five of Swords, which is the card called Guilty, and this is consistent. They're showing me the Devil, which is illusion, delusion, and nefarious things. Right? They're showing me all this stuff, and when I try to I look at Biden, and to me, cards go, okay, Biden's going to win. Okay, great. I don't know how long he's going to stay in office, but he's going to win. But then I look at Trump, and I'm wondering if we're going to have a Hillary redux where it's like, oh, Biden wins, but he doesn't get seated, because I'm seeing all these weird cards. It's like Trump's going to try to steal the election again, which of course he is. It's the only way he can win. Like, we've already seen this before. He's done it. He did it once before. He attempted it the second time. So there's no reason to believe he's not going to try it a third time.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, he will, for sure. He's going to start. I'd be amazed, let's put it this way, if he didn't say it's all rigged, and because he always does that to cover the fact that he's expecting to lose. It's just that I don't see it in the astrology, and I don't see it in the politics. The politics is becoming next to impossible for the Republican Party, because Trump, anybody they put there, has to defend the indefensible so much that voters are not going to, they're going to show up and vote. And by the way, cheating now is much harder than it was in 2020. So you can try to steal the election, but how exactly are you going to do that? And I don't see enough. I mean, Biden's chart has some pressures, but not even close to the pressures he has. In fact, in Biden's case, there are pretty good alignments in his chart to get him through. And like as an example, Biden, the whole time people say he's old and so forth, all this Saturn, right? So the Saturn starts to clear from pressure in his chart, not totally, but in the spring. So he's still in it, but so we're hearing all those messages about being old and so forth. And so it just doesn't make sense to me to look at Trump's and say, well, he's got enough there to pull this off. It just doesn't, it doesn't align. Another thing too is that it's peculiar to see Kamala Harris's chart looking really good at in the 2024 November period. That's strange, because why would it be so? She's the running mate. So I don't know. Maybe, when you're saying you're seeing that, could it be that that's they're going to try every trick under the sky?
I think they're going to try to, excuse me, they're going to try every trick in the book. I think that the cards are just showing that, and they're consistently showing that when I look at him. And I don't see Trump as president. I don't. I've always seen Biden. There's been a few card spreads. The cards, it's funny because I'll watch the energy move a little bit. The more you read on it, the more you get these little tiny vacillations where it's kind of like, oh wait, there's a little spread where Trump might have an edge. Oh, there's a little spread where, Trump's getting closer to maybe possibly winning. And then it will divert back to Biden. You see that with everything you read on. That's just if you're reading on something consistently like that. I've seen that with clients, the frequent clients. I've seen it in my own life where you will every once in a while, particularly interestingly around Mercury retrograde, you start to see shifts in the cards, and they'll shift a little bit. And sometimes they shift back. Sometimes they shift back to the way they were prior to the retrograde. Sometimes they don't. And those little shifts stay in. So as a card reader, I'm always telling people, so you get a reading during Mercury retrograde, just so you're going to see some shifts that may or may not be permanent. I see that consistently. And I don't know if you've heard that from other tarot readers about Mercury, but I see it consistently. So with Trump, because I've read on him so much, I do see these little pockets, let's say, where he might have an in. They're slim, they're tiny, but they do appear in the cards.
Yeah, well, and he's there. He's the leading contender and all of that. Some readers have said they don't even see him getting to the nomination. There is the one thing that is there, though, that is a little puzzling, because they're constantly going on about Biden's cognitive this and cognitive that and health. Trump's chart is way more threatened than Biden's around health. And matter of fact, there was this point where an astrologer, he's a good astrologer, Patrick Watson, we were talking on my channel, and he's interpreting this conjunction that is coming up next year in Taurus. Jupiter Uranus conjoin, but it's a very brief conjunction because you can get conjunctions that go in and out, and then they could go on for 2 or even 3 years. This one is once and boom, right? And after that, the Saturn station comes, which is much worse. But someone on my channel pointed out, one of the viewers, that Jupiter-Uranus conjunction is a serious health risk, and it's true. It's lined up in a perfect health angle to his moon energy, which rules the 12th, which is where you go to the hospital. Not a good scene at all, especially in light of other transits like where Pluto and Neptune are. They're very late they're about to get out of their signs, right? And so Pluto and Neptune, very late, they hit his ascendant in a health pattern, and that's very dangerous. So, and by the way, if it doesn't translate to health, that aspect is very maladjusted. Whenever someone is in an aspect like that, if they're not sick, they're kind of looking around to fix something and they can't quite fix it. So none of that is helpful for going into the election, right? But what astrologers can point to is they can say, the Trumpers, they'll say, yeah, but Jupiter is in his sign next year. It is. That's true.
It is. Yep, that's right. It's in Gemini. That's right.
But when you see Jupiter, and 6 planets around it, all crunching you, the Jupiter to me now is more around the fact that he's in a notoriety cycle. He's out there in the open, but it's not going to help. It's not going to save him because part of the problem is that his Jupiter is not a totally clear planet. It has really good energy in one direction, but it rules the 8th, for example. The 8th sign, that's not a good. As soon as you connect it to that sign, including all the way to, it's death energy for one thing.
Right, it's death, right? The 8th house is death, yeah.
Exactly, but also the idea of running into major problems with a planet like that is what happens under this particular, So, yeah, that's how I call it. We'll see. Time will tell. The other thing, too, is that, what do you sense for if you go a little deeper and you look at the country's energy and, going into 25, 26, what's your outlook on that when you do the cards or psychically?
It's interesting because I want to say a lot of TikTok astrologers are saying, oh, it's the something with Pluto in America or something, like because Pluto's switching signs, we're going into like this revolutionary period. Other astrologers are saying, nope, not true. That's not, you've got your timing off, da, 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 da. So it's interesting to me to see people arguing over it. In this astrological aspect, it's kind of like some people are like, no, you don't know what you're talking about. Other people are like, no, it's going to be massive upheaval. In the psychic sense, when I look at what's coming in, the first thing I see is climate change. First thing I see, and that's what the guides have been showing me a lot over and over and over again. They've actually been coming onto some of my live streams and saying, hey, get ready. They've been telling my viewers, like, and this isn't like fear mongering, but it's like, have a bag ready in case there's a wildfire, have some extra water in the thing, have a radio in case your internet goes down, simple stuff. But they're saying, listen, this stuff is going to get worse. It's going to come out of nowhere and everybody should be prepared. The first thing I see for the US is climate change wreaking havoc. Politically speaking, our leaders are not going to be ready. They're not ready. They're not ready. It's going to be, FEMA's running out of money. They're not going to have money to finance FEMA. They're not going to want to move money from the military industrial complex over to disaster relief. They're not going to want to do it. They're going to have to do it eventually. That's the first thing I see when I look at this country is not ready for climate change, not bringing down climate change enough, obviously, but there's going to be a lot of infighting. Republican Party is splintering. You're going to see it further splinter. You can already see it now with Kevin McCarthy. He's trying to appease a bunch of different people. That man made a lot. Let me go off on Kevin McCarthy. Okay. That man made a lot of promises, opposing promises. Oh, I'll do this for you. And then he'll tell another person the exact opposite. I'll do that for you. And now he can't please anybody. He wanted that job so badly. He wanted that job. He wanted the clout. He wanted to feel like a big man. He wanted to prove he was good. And now he's in there and he's making a mess of it. He's ruining his own party. I mean, it was already going under like the effing Titanic, but this guy basically lit fire to the Titanic. Okay. he's going to continue to fracture that party, and you're going to see a lot of disarray, even more so than you already do. Right now, they're still a little bit, cohesive. Still, I mean, they can get stuff done. They're going to shut down the government in a couple of days, right? They can do stuff like that. Going into 24, 25, 26, they're not going to have that kind of power. They're not going to be able to do it. They will not be able to do it. They're going to be too fractured, too splintered. They're going to be all over the place. You're going to see, the Tea Party that we saw back in the day. You're going to see a resurgence of that. The Democratic Party, unfortunately, not faring that much better. You're going to see a lot of people going, "You're too moderate." Feinstein won't retire. Pelosi won't retire. We want AOC in the hot seat. We want a lot of people. We want younger energy. We want better energy. We want more socialist. I know the S word. I said the scary S word, but more socialist stuff where we have a better safety net, where we're more European. You're going to see a big push for that coming in, mostly in 26, 27, 28. You're seeing these. I'm getting huge downloads, so I'm just yammering away. But you're seeing these people like Biden, like Feinstein, like Pelosi. You're going to see other people that are on their way out that don't want to let go, and that is going to hurt the Democratic Party a little bit. So I see a country in a little bit of disarray, and that can create an opening for Trump or a Trump-like figure to try to slip in there and go, I will solve the problems on either end of the spectrum, whether it's Republican or Democrat or like we would have a third party candidate. But I see disarray, and I see it coming through politically, and I see it coming through climate change. I think economically, however, we're going to hit a nice little peak coming out of COVID. I always say we're in a recession. I know they won't say we're in a recession, but most of the people I know that own small businesses have been having issues for the last 8 months. I think we're going to hit a nice peak, 26, 27, 28. It's going to be a nice economic peak. And then we have a little opportunity to have a big fall, or we have an opportunity to level out. I don't know which way it's going to go.
Yeah. Well, by the way, see, if you think about what you just said, that doesn't give the Republican Party the victory. Also, the period, so when you go to 25, 26, 27, the danger there is that those planet cycle changes, they do mirror in a spooky way the Civil War period from where Neptune and Saturn are. And then Pluto entering Aquarius is a big shift from where it's been in Capricorn. So this has been one of my, conclusions around analyzing that, is to realize that there is unrest there, there is dissatisfaction, there is instability, but that tends to happen when Democrats are in power because it's the Republicans that are upset. The Democrats, they don't threaten to shoot you. That's a Republican thing, right? They're the ones that say, if we're not happy, we're going to come to your house and we're going to start shooting, which, by the way, most of them now are realizing is not a good idea, because all that happens is you get put in prison for life, or if not worse. So, but that logic would say that's what happens, and they're not happy, and we have to get through it until enough of them, there's enough of a voting bloc. Probably, again, I've said this in the past, and then I get a lot of negative comments when I say that the boomers are responsible. I'm a boomer. I'm talking about the Trump boomers, and I'm not saying every boomer is bad. Obviously not, because...
Yeah, not all boomers.
No, I mean, a third of the support roughly on both sides. It's actually a little higher for Trump, but the ones that are really entrenched and driving this are the, boomers that support Trump. They're people that are particularly out of touch with reality, and so they're the most dangerous. And when some readers have said, well, the solution is for them to go away, that's what is meant by that, not to throw every boomer in the trash, because I'm there as well, right? So those demographics will change. And it is known that younger demographics don't like Trumpism. They don't like, they don't like the whole Republican Party game. So this means winning an election, which doesn't mean it'll restore the peace. That's the problem, right? In fact, the last one didn't restore the peace. I mean, we've had a better situation, obviously, because anything is better than that complete imbecile, running the country, because that's what he is. I mean, honestly, he says he's a stable genius, and then he tells you to drink bleach. I mean, come on, give me a break. You're a total fool. So him not being there is great, but it's been stressful because of the way the Republican Party is behaving, including, you said, McCarthy. I mean, McCarthy his planets right now are really rough. He's under a lot of Saturn. He may not get out of here. He may not be able to make it to January. It's possible that
Mm.
they'll throw him out because Saturn for him is it's returning, right? And it's square the moon at birth. So when it returns, it squares the moon. That's not good. And when you see the scenario around him, he's kind of caught. He's like someone is in the corner of the room and there's paint everywhere and he can't get out because
Mhm.
if he goes this way, this group rebels, and it's really sad. By the way, the reason this is happening is we've created a system where, due to social media and the way the information is moving around, that group that is rebelling, they're not thinking of the country, they're thinking of themselves because for them, the more crazy they are, the more money they raise. And so they're not interested in passing laws. That's not the point. The point is to say outrageous things and keep your seat. And if you live in, some rural area where everyone votes Republican, just say anything. Say Jewish space lasers, whatever, make up stuff. And then you get reelected, or Lauren Boebert, right? Although I think she's going to lose her seat, I
I
think.
think she is too. I agree.
Yeah. But the overall tenor, these things, seldom do they change immediately. So my feeling is we're looking at least 2 election cycles.
I agree.
For,
I think the thing that everything's going to pivot towards, it's going to take a while, but people are going to start to realize, oh, wait a minute. We had, 54 hurricanes, hit the southern states in 2 years. Okay, wait a minute. We've had now these fires, they've burned down more towns. We're at the very beginning of it. And so people aren't really, unless you're really paying attention, a lot of people don't realize climate change is here and it's already
yeah.
screwing a bunch of people over. And like in California, they're not selling earthquake insurance anymore. They won't sell fire insurance anymore. I can't get insured out here. I cannot insure. They won't even insure my electronics.
Wow.
They will not give me insurance anymore because, oh, well, everything might just burn down. So we're seeing this. It's going to get worse and worse and worse. Everybody's going to pivot towards, after they created this problem, now they're going to create the solution. That's going to be chaotic. And I think that the government's not going to do anything about it until people get really, really, really upset and they realize their seats are threatened because they've been sitting there saying Jewish space lasers for 5 years, and not, sure, I'll make sure you're insured. I'll make sure you get insurance.
It's interesting when you were saying that I got the download. It suddenly hit me that because one of the cycles that is kind of scary, the Uranus returning to where the place where it was discovered, Uranus in Gemini, is consistently very, very connected to upheaval in the world. Back then, there was a lot of upheaval through the incoming Industrial Revolution, right? Although that led to a lot of progress as well. Then the Second World War is happening with Uranus leaving Taurus and entering Gemini, where it's going now in the 20s.
Oh, wow.
But Uranus in the U.S. chart, which the chart that I use, I think is the best chart for the U.S., is the Sibley chart with Sagittarius rising. That puts Aquarius in the third, and Uranus as co-ruler of Aquarius. The third is climate. So that's kind of suspicious, around the possibility that could be the driver. Because one of the things I thought of that it could also be is conflict with a foreign country, because that's what happened in the Second World War. So possibly China. Already there's a conflict with Russia, but it's more of a proxy thing. But now that you mention it, I see the angle on climate too as the possible thing. But then that would also suggest the U.S. would be the big leader in trying to solve the problem, both from necessity and from technology. So there's that as well.
I think they will be. I think for some reason the U.S. kind of has been in this position of, all right, we're going to do this. And then, people sort of follow. And I don't know why. I don't know why, but the US does lead. And I think they are going to eventually lead when it comes to climate, but they're going to be borrowing a lot of stuff from other countries and just sort of tweaking it. They're going to be tweaking quite a bit. You're going to see more Democrats in office because of climate change. You're going to see it. And then the Republicans are going to jump on board. They're going to keep going with this idea. Oh, we need coal. We need nuclear power. We need this. We need that. Oh, climate change isn't real. And then you're going to see, bam, probably I would say between mid 25 and the beginning of 26, you're going to see they're starting to shift. they're starting to shift. It's going to be a slow shift, but you're going to see certain Republicans coming out and saying, "Oh, no, we need wind power, and I've got this, great idea." You're going to start to see it. They're going to be playing catch up because the Dems are already there. They're not there enough, but they're going to be. This is going to be a big deal. That's going to be the biggest threat to the U.S. It's not going to be Trump. It's not going to be another country, although I think there's a pretty good chance that there's going to be conflict with China down the road somewhere, probably in the 2030s, but it's going to be climate, and people are going to be pissed. This is the disarray I see with people, and the government doesn't help for quite some time. It's Trump throwing the paper towels in Puerto Rico. That's what we're going to get out of the US with regards to these disasters for a couple years before they're like, okay.
Well, generally though, in general terms, when democratic administrations are in power, they tend to be a lot more respectful
They do better.
of a climate of disaster relief. This insane. Remember Ron Paul? Ron Paul thought that the libertarian guy, not Rand Paul. Rand Paul is the idiot's son, but Ron Paul. He thought that if there was a hurricane, that the government shouldn't provide any relief. That it's every man for himself. Kind of like the fire department only shows up if there's money or you've paid your taxes or some crazy rule. He thinks that the world should be filled with nomads, libertarians just like basically using society's tools, but not being accountable to society. So that thinking is crazy. It's completely crazy. Not to mention that if you did that, you would probably have a lot of unrest. Because can you imagine if there's a hurricane and people are really sick and dying and no one is doing anything? How is that a solution?
Right.
You'll have all kinds of problems. So
you're going to have a lot of problems. The Dems are going to be playing catch up. Nobody's prepared for how this is going to hit. I'm telling you, nobody in the US, I haven't looked at other countries yet, but politics wise in the US, they don't have contingency plan for, like Australia, they had that massive wildfire. They had no way to stop it. No one is really prepared. So you're going to see Dems playing catch up for a while, but you're going to see the Republicans, the Dems are here. Republicans are way back here trying to play catch up. So the Dems have to get the idea in their head that it's going to be worse than you think. They're not preparing for the utmost absolute worst. They're ill prepared. But they're still going to be able to help. But I'm telling you, and I think also this political stuff where it's Trumpism is on its way out. Trumpism is not, it's on the wane.
By the way, see that's another one. The fascist impulse is clearly Pluto and Capricorn. It's been growing since 2008. In a way, Obama made it worse because it, accelerated it inadvertently. But notice that all throughout the world, they're having a hard time getting a grip. They lost in Brazil, in Europe, and so forth. Pluto and Aquarius, it's logical. Aquarius is the sign of the people. Like when you said earlier that the flow is toward, if anything, an era where more union power, the common person gets more power than before. That's what I think will happen. I'm not saying it's going to solve all the problems, but the idea that a singular figure, only I can do it, this is BS. This is not where the world is going. It's not good for Putin. It's not good for Xi Jinping. Any place where a single person tries to put themselves at the top, that's not Pluto and Aquarius. Pluto and Aquarius, in fact, by the way, this was the last Pluto and Aquarius where there were revolutions of the people against oppressive governments. So that repeats in that sense, right? 250 years later. So, but that is what Aquarius is as well. So it's not a big mystery. If it were entering Capricorn now, then I would be worried. Then I would be thinking, there's a problem because Pluto, by the way, in Cancer, the opposite sign, was the 1930s. You saw what happened there, right? Mussolini, Hitler, because that's a period where that axis, the Cancer Capricorn axis, is way more dangerous around, fascist figures, dictators.
So I have a just totally random question about this, but so Cancer I know is kind of like, this is a rudimentary astrology question, but Cancer is kind of like your mother and the home, and so is that why with this whole the motherland and we're Mother Germany and that kind, is that why they were able to pull it off so well, because Pluto was in Cancer?
Yes, because the Cancer Capricorn axis I always explain astrology as pairs of signs. You get a lot from looking at both ends. And so if Pluto's in Cancer, it triggers Capricorn. If Pluto's in Capricorn, it triggers Cancer. So the idea of the homeland, the idea of, for instance, the nationalism where you isolate yourself is classic that way. Centralizing power in one person, the totalitarian effect of Pluto. Yes, that's exactly it. In the 1930s, that's exactly what was happening, right? And it took all this time for Pluto to come around to the other end.
Mm.
But what you notice is that, there's another argument that I remember broke out on my channel because I said something and then all of a sudden,
I know, and then all
what are
hell
you
breaks
saying?
loose.
Because I made the case, I said the US is, in a sense, the oldest democracy. And what I meant by that is, there are 350 million people here. I know that there have been democracies. I'm sure there were, Eskimos forming democracies in their igloos. That doesn't count for this argument. Broadly speaking, in terms of governments, they started around when Uranus was discovered, right? In the late 18th century. Now you notice that even fascists pretend they're democracies. They tell you, oh, no, we're democratic. We have a vote. They don't tell you that they do it at gunpoint, stuff like that. But
Right.
the point is, no one says, well, maybe Trump. Trump's idea, he's totally blunt about it. I'm going to kill the Constitution and install myself as the Führer. So he's that crazy. But the point is, democracies have been really ascendant, right? And when you think of Aquarius, where Pluto is going, first of all, last time, that's what happened. Democracies started to flourish. That's exactly when they started to flourish. Pluto in Aquarius promotes more of that. Separately, it might also give too much power to the tech companies. Well, good luck with that. Yeah, AI and all that. I know that's part of it too. It's never perfect. I mean, people think there's some utopia here. There's no utopia. Put on your seatbelt. Life is complicated. It's always like this. But to think that Pluto going into Aquarius is helpful to dictators, no, it's not. Pluto going into Aquarius, it's helpful to the group. It empowers the group, right? And the group is society at large, which is what democracy is supposed to be. Everybody gets more of a say rather than one individual, right?
So, question: do you think all of these union strikes are shades of Pluto in Aquarius? Are we
Yes.
already starting to see that?
Yes, because notice that strikes, and by the way, totally justified strikes. The workers, the auto workers are saying we were making an entry level $17 an hour in 2008 and it's still the same amount. Obviously, this is the way that society's become this thing. It peaks, I think, with Pluto and Capricorn, where the logic is, let's pay the CEOs 1,000 times more and then give the rest to the shareholders, and the people below, they get nothing. That's obviously unfair. You got to level it out. So yeah, and that to me will keep growing. It'll keep moving in that direction, which is only fair. It equalizes the playing field. And then there'll be a point where it'll turn the other way. It's always like that. Cycles, move in and out. And the idea that sometimes a country has to cut back is a good idea and spend less, but Republicans are liars on that because they spend even more. I don't know if you saw the stats that Trump accumulated the same amount of debt in 4 years that Obama accumulated in 8. They're total liars. And George W. Bush totally expanded the debt. Meanwhile, they're telling you, like, whenever they're in power, all of a sudden spending is a problem. Oh, we can't spend anymore. But as soon as they get power, the same group here was not holding back when Trump was in power. But now that they're there, they're telling you that we have to cut spending. So they're not, as they are in this incarnation or in this iteration, they're not the solution to, balanced budgets or anything. No, they haven't done that since the 90s.
No, it is a fact that every time there's a Democrat in power, that the country does better economically. It's an absolute fact.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just that we're in a period that it is turbulent because there you get into remember I said the Civil War energies, and it's true. The U.S. every 80, well, no, not every 80. It's the Neptune cycle is such that it's every 160 because in the return point, the country comes together more. That's what happened in the Second World War. The country was united to fight the enemy. Right now, Neptune is in the Civil War position, so you get two factions, right, that are fighting with one another. But I still say it's still majority against minority. They're the minority. You have to focus on that, right?
They are.
Yeah.
They're just loud. They're just loud. They're
They're
just loud.
loud. Yeah, they're loud. But I mean, think too that, recently with all these polls, oh, Biden is tied with Trump, which first of all is too early. They're national polls. The only polls that matter are the battleground states. That's where you got to focus because that doesn't matter if you have that's what happened to Hillary. She had the 3%. She won by the 3% nationally, but she lost in the key battleground states by a smidgen. This guy fluked it. It's like someone giving you three aces, on the draw, and then you win by luck, right? But now, it's just not gonna go that way in terms of the 24 period. It doesn't match with what the expectation that because of certain polls. What is more revealing, notice that whenever there are elections in the last couple of years, we have the party in power, right? You normally expect the elections to start to go to the other party.
Yes.
I just saw a thing. 24 out of the last 30 elections, Democrats have outperformed, not just one, but outperformed. That's a very bad sign for Republicans because it's telling you the mood out there is this MAGA stuff. No, I'm not into this, right? Well, you're about to see even more MAGA. They're going to make even more of a case why MAGA, MAGA, MAGA. People don't like MAGA, right? So it's a problem. And so those to me are the real polls. What are the results that are coming in, And even if they suddenly saw Jesus and got it together, are they going to go back on what they're doing to women? That's a really bad play. That's the stupidest play. I bet you Alito and Thomas didn't think that one through, when they were so adamant.
Thomas is interesting. Thomas is an interesting case. Listen, what goes around comes around on that guy. He's gonna get it. It's gonna take a while, but he's gonna get it. I think it's a huge misstep for what they've done to women, and it's very clear. I mean, Trump basically came out and said, "Hey, I am the one that outlawed abortion. So if you want me to outlaw it nationally, vote for me." And it's like, no, nobody wants that. Nobody wants that. The Republicans are now using a term called abortion tourism, which is so crass and foul.
Abortion tourism, perfect. Yeah. That's like how they were also saying that January 6th was a tourist visit. Yeah, I saw that. With flagpoles, and I love those tourist visits.
It was fine.
It's crazy, completely crazy. Yeah. So I mean, it's they're going in with really difficult positions. Then you have people like Taylor Swift, who has a huge pull, getting all those young people to vote. And what are they mad about? They're mad about the guns. And the Republicans try every trick to prevent fair voting. It's tough. It's a tough game. When you're playing like this and you're not the party in power, it makes it really hard to get through. So I'm optimistic about the election, but I'm not as optimistic about the outcome settling things down, including that there may be some violence, and that has to be,
Yeah, there's wonky cards around it. Like I said, the cards around it are strange. They're difficult. Oh my goodness, sir. Coming back. Here we go. They're strange cards. They are showing again the devil to me. So the last time I saw the devil, he literally can't see anything. So I don't know why he's looking down. But the last time I saw the devil and I couldn't figure out what it was, it ended up being the that thing that I don't want to get your channel dinged because we can't really say this word. But that thing that happened in March of 2020 that we're still dealing with, that thing.
March of 2020. Wait, hold on.
March of 2020 that we all had to start.
Oh yeah. Okay, yeah.
Right, that thing. My channel got almost taken down because I used that phrase, so be careful with that one. But the last time I saw the devil in the cards and it was consistent, it was that. And I'm still seeing the devil around this election. Can't figure out what it is for the life of me. But there's something around that energy. There's something around that. Either it's before, it's after, it's during, it's all three, but the devil card is there. So whether it is upheaval, whether it's more January 6th or or it ends up being, okay, Trump tried to steal the election, but he didn't make it. Or it's, okay, Biden is in office for a year and then he can't do it anymore and Kamala has to take over. I mean, it could be any of those things, but that devil is consistent. So I know there's something wonky around. There's
Well,
something wonky around.
I mean, you're not satisfied enough by just saying the devil is the Republican Party. I mean,
No, absolutely
no,
not.
not
No,
enough.
it's an event. It's an event. It's something that we can't see yet.
That will just that creates more, or that correlates with more instability, or
It's instability, but I think it's also the way you picture things going, they're not going to go that way. There's something, there's a fly in the ointment, if you will. There is something there. Oh my God. There's something here we can't see. So now he's barking at me. There's something that we can't see where we're looking at this road of like, okay, it's going to go like it always has been. Biden's going to win and Trump's going to try to steal, but he won't do it. And and the devil is coming in and saying, it's not going to go down the way you think. It's not going to be Biden for 4 years in that office. Or, I don't think Trump's going to win. I don't think it's that. And it could be, okay, Trump got arrested on the day of the election. I mean, but there's something that's in there. To use astrology speak, it's Uranian in nature. You know what I mean? There's something coming in. There's some kind of Uranus energy. There's some kind of tower energy that's coming in and saying, oh, you guys think it's going to be like this, no, there's something there that we're all going to go, oh, wow, there's something there. I don't know what it is.
I could see that. Yeah. I mean, I don't know, like you, I don't know what it is, but I could definitely, I could go along with that for sure. Because the thing about Uranus cycles is that it doesn't necessarily have to be in the sign. A lot of times in astrology, it's preceding, like in other words, it's going there. So you're already in that particular type of energy. And Uranus is getting close to leaving the sign and going into its most impactful place. So yes, that could definitely fit because it's still, during the election, it's still in Taurus. Mm-hmm. For Trump, it's not a good thing because for Trump, next year, it locks into a direct square to his Mars, and that's never good. It's that's another one. I mean, he's got everything. He's got all the planets doing something to harass him. I mean, it's even down in the solar arcs. You start digging into, symbolic movements, and it's all there. Progressions too. It's everywhere.
Interesting.
So, yeah.
So he's. I mean, there's no way this man could be successful at anything at this point. Basically, I mean, it's not.
No.
I think he's going to run away. I think he's going to lose this election. I think he thinks this election is going to save him. Oh, I'm president again. You can't. All the lawsuits will go away. Well, they'll have to wait till I'm not president anymore to convict me of these lawsuits. I think that's his plan. That's in his mind. And when he realizes that's not a thing, he's just going to go, like I said, his vacation in Dubai, and oops, he just forgot to come home.
Yeah, it's amazing that if that happens, the way one psychic put it was that he would be in the period when he would be appealing his convictions, and instead of showing up in court, he just leaves. The only thing, though, the question to ask is like, are we that slack? Because anybody else would be in the slammer waiting for but not this guy. I mean, because this is the thing in the U.S. If you become president, it's like you almost get carte blanche to, abuse the system, and he knows it. That's Trump's genius is he knows the soft spots in democracy, because if you were in a real dictatorship, you'd be in the slammer waiting for, with something like this, they would never trust him to be walking around and abusing judges and all the rest. It's way too slack. Yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
It's true. So when you mentioned the questions you had, you were exploring, it was around this thing, right? The cards you were getting and what they might mean.
Yep. Like I said, that there's something we just can't see quite what it is. I don't think he's going to win. I get nervous that he's going to win because in the Hillary election, I mean, it was me, it was Linda G, it was a couple of other psychic friends of mine. We were all reading on it, right? Because we never thought this guy would get this far. Everybody saw Hillary winning. Everybody saw it. We all saw it. We're okay. We're all breathing, sighs of relief. And so election night rolled around, and we're texting each other going, what is going on here? So I think I personally have like PTSD from that. And I'm going, well, shoot, I'm seeing this devil card, and I keep seeing Biden win. Everybody keeps seeing Biden win, but we were wrong before. So, I start to look towards the astrology and go, God, is it possible Trump could win? Is it even possible? But from what you're telling me, it doesn't seem like that's going in his
Well,
chart.
I don't know. All I know is I'll tell you this, that if someone put a gun to my head and I'd have to bet, a ton of money on, I would not bet on Trump. Bad bet,
Good,
in my
good, good,
opinion,
good,
right?
good,
Now
good.
he did pull it out, but last time, but to me, Trump is an inadvertent agent of change. He's actually better for women than Hillary would have been. That's the irony, right? Him being there is promoting ERIS, which is the rise of women, which is continuing and you can't stop it. A figure like him is really good for that. Hillary might have even harmed women in the sense that they would have taken it for granted, and then they would have been pushed back against Hillary. It's always the counterforce that does it, right? So
Well,
I
yeah,
think
that makes
not
sense.
only that, if you think of democracy going into the future, he is such a great warning, for what can happen. And that's another thing that is necessary sometimes to open people's eyes to basically, it's a little bit like people put in their security systems in their homes after they get robbed, and then they don't get robbed again
Right.
because the theft shows them, okay, so then we close it down. And there are so many things in this country that depend on people's decency. But he's an indecent, mendacious sleazebag, basically, and he doesn't care. And so then he's showing you that, yeah, I can yell at judges, and he's actually trying to create violence against all the people that are opposing him. Because I don't know if you heard about Mitt Romney's book and how he's saying that a lot of these senators, they started out with, they were scared to go to vote against him because they might lose their job, but then it became they might lose their life.
Oh my
because
God.
they don't all have security. So he immediately, if you go against him, he immediately tries to dox you in some way, and then people are coming to your house, and
Mhm.
it's pretty scary. I mean, he's like a mob boss.
He is. He
Yeah,
absolutely is. He
yeah,
well, he has a lot of ties to the mafia too. I mean, that's pretty well documented that, he does business with the mafia, Roy Cohn. I mean, all of that. That's all.
yeah, yeah. Right. But I mean, this is the thing, though. Great, he's doing all of that. This is not the panorama, the astrology panorama you want around that. Everyone, look, remember John Gotti? He was like untouchable
Mhm.
until he wasn't. And the end of his life was not good. It was
Oh,
not good at all. It was horrible. He was in prison, he got cancer. Things did not end well. I mean, compared to, Dapper Don walking around with his suits and all that.
yep.
That's not how it ended. And the other thing about Trump, too, that's really fascinating is that if you look at where Saturn is today, it's where it was at his low point in the mid 90s when he had that incredibly big loss that he declared. And
Mhm.
the 90s were his lowest decade.
Yeah.
Because, right. So Saturn, where it is now and in the upcoming years, it reflects the 90s because it's a 30-year cycle of that, right? And that's with 30 years of criminality added on top. Because most people, they get wiser as they get older. They kind of realize, I better not do that. This guy, that just, he goes along the same line and he complicates things even more.
Mhm.
So I don't see how this is good for him. But the thing with Trump, though, is that he may end up being a figure like one of those dictator types that ends up in some place, exiled somewhere or something. And then, so the idea that you can really truly punish him other than to make him an outcast is probably unrealistic.
Yeah.
This is where it fits, where people say they don't see him in prison, because I've heard this from more than one reader. You say this. Linda has said this repeatedly.
Mhm.
He doesn't see him in prison,
No.
even though he
No.
fully deserves it.
Yeah, he absolutely does. And I think also, you know, Trump really exposed the Republican Party for what it was and how
Mhm.
far it would go.
Mhm.
And that's it actually, at the end of the day, that's going to go in the plus column. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
That's something where you're like, okay, we needed to see that.
Yeah.
Who knew? I mean, we knew they were like abortion crazy nuts. Like, we knew that, but the fact that they were so willing to give themselves over to fascism and have this massive white Christian authoritarian bent. I don't think I didn't see it. I mean, I kind of knew it in the back of my head, but until the Trump thing, I didn't see it. I didn't pay attention to it. I voted for Obama. I voted for, whoever. I voted for my Democratic presidents, and that was it. So when Trump comes along and he really exposes it, I think that's a good positive. I think that's huge. But I also think, if I'm correct, by this point he should have learned how to do his Saturn. He's an older person, and my understanding is the older you get, the more you become friends with Saturn. And it seems like this guy didn't do that.
No, well, but see, that's another thing. That's in a way, bread and butter astrology. The condition of your Saturn, your wisdom, your discipline, what you've put together, how you've organized your life. If that's solid, you get reasonable Saturn transits, and they actually can help you. In fact, the irony is that nothing happens until Saturn shows up to challenge you. So I notice that whenever I try something that I need to do, I have to sacrifice a little bit. Saturn is there. Otherwise, nothing is happening. This guy, first of all, Saturn is in his 12th, which is the prison house. He just uses it to commit crimes. He's always done this. He doesn't respect the law. That's because of the Uranus in his chart, the way it's placed, and so forth. And so, is it any mystery now that Saturn is coming around and he has 91 felony charges? I mean, how many do you need? How many, please, to show you? So then you say, well, he's going to get away with it. I wouldn't bet on that. That's kind of a big leap,
Yeah, I don't think he's going to get away with it. I think I don't see prison time. Doesn't mean he gets away with it. I've always seen this. This hits his money. I'd be curious to know what's going on in his money house in the next 5, 6, 7, 8 years, because this is hitting his pocketbook and my cards. What I get every time is pentacles, 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 pentacles. It's hitting the money. That's where it's going to hurt. And that's what hurts him the most. That man doesn't want to give up his money.
Yeah, no. Yeah. And by the way Jack Smith's planets are placed, I would be amazed if he didn't charge him with wire fraud around what he did with all that money that he raised. Because I heard that he was looking into it. And when you have a person that is investigating you, potentially charging you, and they've got a cluster of planets in your money house, square in your planets, that's the signal. I'm looking into you, and it challenges. So, okay, Trump has Gemini, Sagittarius, so Virgo and Pisces square, and you place all of Jack Smith's and Virgo in the money house. Extremely threatening. I would not be surprised one bit if there's another indictment where he accuses him of basically lying about what he was doing with the money. That's fraud. And I see this on the, those programs like American Greed. So many of these people go down where they say, give me money for X, and then they use it for Y. The FBI looks at that, takes them a while, and then they charge you. And they'll use, say, wire fraud, general fraud, whatever. They get all your money, you get charged. It's not good, right? Not to mention that Letitia James has them in New York for overall business fraud even before that. I mean, this guy is like he's the gift that keeps on giving. Just say crime and he's doing it somewhere. Well, it's true. I mean, it's totally true.
It's compulsive for him. I don't think he could stop even if he wanted to.
No, and I think too that something else which I've mentioned, and some people agree with this, some not as much, but I am pretty sure that he's already in dementia, because I am almost certain that Trump 20 years ago would not have done what he's doing. He would have been less reckless. I think he would have realized that you can't take down an entire system the way he's trying. It's too hard. He's just way out there with his thinking. Now, mind you, the presidency made him worse, because when you are given a lot of power, it can inflate your head. And then, this behavior where, they're my records. They're not your records, but you can tell yourself they're your records, but they're not your records. So there's some of that. But I think it's funny that they say that about Biden. Biden is more, I think with Biden is he has slowed down. He used to be a better communicator 10 years ago, no question.
Yeah.
Biden is pretty sharp. He's made all kinds of things work during his tenure. And it's more that he looks older. He doesn't have the sprightly energy. But I think the one with the mental problems is Trump. The other day he was telling people that he had defeated Obama and that we were headed to World War II in the middle of a speech. I mean, ask yourself, this means that the Adderall wasn't kicking in or whatever that he takes. He actually said that. He started to talk really slowly, and he said, I defeated Obama. Obama was very divisive. and Biden is going to lead us into World War II. So you tell me, right?
Oh, I didn't hear. I don't pay attention to Trump stuff anymore because I just get angry or sad. So I didn't hear that one. Oh
Yeah,
my
I mean, think about it, right?
God. Oh wow. Well, I think, yeah, I mean, I think there's some cognitive issues there. I also wonder, I mean, psychically looking at it, it's one of those where I look at him and I go, okay, your brain's not firing well, but you're either on a medication you shouldn't be on, or you need to be medicated on something and you're not. So something that might help the brain work better, or he's taking stuff he shouldn't be taking and it's messing with his head. But that's where he is with that. I also see the grandiosity, this idea that he was going to become president, that's actually when the cognitive issues started. He
Yeah.
started listening to people he wouldn't have normally listened to. I see that. People were telling him, oh, we got this, we got that, we got this. Oh, guys are also saying Mitch McConnell, same deal. So he's done, by the way. That guy is toast. That guy's out of here. If he keeps his job, it's going to be some Ronald Reagan second term, Elaine's making all the decisions and Mitch is just being wheeled out like Weekend at Bernie's. I mean,
Yeah,
he's done.
he's the classic, that very textbook astrology. His sun is very early Pisces, and he had his first event where he fell, probably was a cognitive thing. It was when Saturn entered Pisces, which
Oh
is what
wow.
happens right at the very beginning. And then he had another one later, and now, between now and the new year, Saturn is super late, and it's gonna station super early, sorry, like at 1 degree Pisces. So it's right on his sun. What he should be doing, and he's not doing it, is pull back, rest, just recover. These guys never stop. So yeah, it's kind of like McCarthy too. They're both for different reasons, right? And I also don't know, I don't know McConnell's time, but even without a time, that's really obvious, that it's the Saturn challenging him. There's Uranus too, by the way, in there, so it just adds to it, but it's a square. So once again, the idea of Uranus and a neurological thing, and Saturn, just general hard times, especially if your health is declining. Saturn being a planet of old age, that's not what you want there, because it's too risky, right? So yeah, I agree with you that I would be amazed if McConnell was still the leader next year even.
There's no way.
No.
There's no way. Well, I know everybody's mad at me because I said the Democrats made a huge mistake keeping Feinstein. And I know that well, they had to because of the Judiciary Committee, and they had to keep her on there because the Republicans said they would not put anybody on debt. I get it. I get it. I get it. I'm telling you, that woman should have been out of a job in the last Obama term.
Yeah, no,
They should have
I
said,
agree.
Diane, you got to go. When they had the last House or Senate majority, they should have been looking at certain people and saying, it's, let's let you go while you're in your prime.
I fully agree. I fully agree because there are differences, though. I mean, there is the nuance that, for example, Pelosi at her age, and if she gets another 2-year term, that's not that alarming to me. Pelosi still looks really sharp. Feinstein, they're 6-year terms, and it's like there you're better to leave because of the risk that you might really decline in your late 80s, or especially look at the Supreme Court. Look what Ruth did. I mean, that ended up being a huge problem, and they were kind of trying to nudge her to say, why don't you, make your way out so we can replace you. She wouldn't do it. And here we are, right? So yeah, I fully agree with you that really they should be wiser about their age. But that said, right now, if Biden was as sprightly as Bernie, he would look better, right? Because Bernie is older, and Bernie had a heart attack, but he's just,
Super
billions,
animated. Yeah,
billionaires and millionaires.
exactly. He's great. Yeah, no, that's true. I also think people mistake Biden's stutter for more than it is. It's
Yeah,
just a stutter. He just has a stutter.
of
I
course.
feel bad for him. I mean, what's going on with this poor guy? I feel so bad for him. Fellow Scorpio Biden, he had the wife and the kid die, and then he's got 2 kids, and the good kid dies of cancer, and now he's got Hunter the dud, who's just ruining lives all over the place. I feel bad for poor Biden. I feel like he's just taking hits with the family stuff. Poor guy.
Yeah, well, the that's in his chart. It's the ruler of the fifth, Mars, square Pluto from the 12th. That's pretty harsh, and the idea that even though in most cases, the way I read charts, I always say to people, the percentage of your fate is low, 10, 20% at most. The other 80, it's you. Get a hold of that 80, don't worry about the 20%. But for some people, that 20% is pretty lethal, and he experienced it as lost his wife at one point, then he lost a child, and he lost another child, then you get Hunter, who's another. I mean, yeah, it's been an ongoing thing, but that's another one that has been rougher recently from where Saturn is, because Saturn is misaligned with the Pluto energy. But by next year, that also starts to move, right? It moves beyond. And Saturn actually goes to pretty good degrees going into the 2024 election. And the other thing that really helps Biden is Neptune is trining, right? And Neptune trining will give you always enough popularity to pull it off. And even if it's by default, because if he's battling Biden or Trump, people will just compare. Like, do I want the old guy that is maybe not looking so sharp, or do I want a criminal felon?
Right. Right.
It's a pretty easy choice. So it might be that. By the way, that's another one that with Trump, the continued popularity is from his Neptune trine to Venus, which is still working, but surrounded by all the other problems. But that's another planet that starts to move away by next year as well, right? So this is where I think it's all going to go, in that direction where Trump's thing doesn't get better, it gets worse.
I agree with you. By the end of the day, this man's going to be a pariah, straight up. I mean, even some of the most hardcore MAGA people are going to be like, I don't know him. They're going to Mariah Carey him. I don't know her. They're just going to walk from this guy. He ends his life, mark my words, as an exiled pariah that nobody wants to touch. And he's going to be living off somebody else's money because he's going to be damn near broke.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's approximately, yeah, if he gets that far. I'm not kidding about this, that he is at risk. The way he lives his life, the shape that he's in, Leo rising, this guy is a heart attack waiting to happen. I remember looking at a very similar chart of someone with Leo rising and similar placements, and it's not good. Remember the context, right? Because you can get a heart attack even if you are fit. I understand that, but it's also known that being in that kind of shape tends to promote it. And then if you add the rage and the constant pressure and 91 felony counts and going to court, I mean, I laugh when people say, well, he'll go on the stand and defend himself. Right, sure. I'm sure that's going to happen. I'm sure that's going to happen. If he got on the stand, I would love to be a fly on the wall for that one, I'd love to be the one, cross-examining him. That's what happened to Meadows, by the way. A lot of these guys, they commit crimes and they don't want to go on the stand because they know how risky it is, because they'll get asked, right? And in the case of Meadows, he immediately said something that was false, and the prosecutor said, well, let me show you the email where you just did the opposite.
Now you just
right?
perjured yourself in front of everybody. Have a nice day.
Exactly. So, I mean, this is the thing, that there's too much going on now. People have to be patient, though, and there are so many frustrated people about the legal system. This is one of Trump's, genius perceptions, although it's pretty obvious. He knows the legal system moves really slowly. He can delay. You can also pay lawyers to file motions and so forth. And by the way, it applies to everybody, because you'll see, just turn on watch a crime show. I saw one recently where this guy had committed murder, and they had him dead to rights, DNA, the whole thing. And it took 18 months to get him to trial. Well, why did it take 18 months? What are you doing for 18 months? What? You've got it all. It's slow, right? Yep. 18 months. I mean, 18 months and we're beyond the election right now, as an example, right? So you have to be patient. That's why it would probably be almost impossible if you're thinking, oh, they're going to put him in jail. Even if they convict him, that's not going to happen, because he just appeals and says that they're out to get him and so forth. So, yeah. But anyway, end result, I would say happy, but with, not the greatest outcome either, as far as thinking. If you think happy and everything is resolved, no, I don't think so.
Agreed. Yeah.
All right. Well, it's been great speaking with you again. I missed speaking with you all this time that has passed. We should do it again soon, you know?
Yes,
You're
absolutely.
into it.
You come hang out with me this time. I want to talk about some wacky stuff. I got wacky stuff to talk about.
Really? Like beyond what we talked about today, this isn't wacky enough for you?
Not wacky enough for me. No, I've been looking at weird things lately. Well, I'm actually curious. You know what I want to talk about, actually, astrologically speaking? I want to talk about the alien disclosures and where you see it going and coming from. I'm actually very curious to see.
Sure.
Uh,
Okay. I'll look a little bit into that because, or ponder it a bit because I never really pay much attention to it because I've never seen what I consider really convincing something that would get me to dig more. But I'll take a look. Yeah, because I
I'm
know.
just, well, I'm interested because all of a sudden the government's going, oh, we have to look at this. And I'm kind of like, well, no, why? Is it because it's real? Is it because something's going to come out? Are you trying to hide something else? Is this a smoke screen? So I'm curious to see why all of a sudden it's got to be somewhere in the astrology. It has to be. And I'm curious.
I'll take a peek and I'll throw my 2 cents in there.
Thank you so much for having me. I love
No,
talking with you. It's so
it
much
was a
fun.
pleasure. It was a pleasure. That was fun. I look forward to the next one.
Yes.
Bye, everyone.